Welcome to the Insight Channel, your user's guide to living life with vision loss. My name's Jazz, I'm a blind occupational therapist, and I'll be your guide. Last week, my video was all about how to use the oven safely. So this week, we're going to take baking to the next level, and I'm going to show you adaptations for how you can follow recipes that go beyond the box mix. The techniques I'm going to show you, you can use for simple baking or more advanced stuff. The recipe we're going to use today is Hawaiian Delight Cupcakes, one of my personal favorites. And it's a little bit more involved than just using your standard box mix. But before you get started with any baking project, you want to make sure you have the right tools. First, you start off with access to the recipe. Now you can, if you read Braille, you can use it in Braille or follow large print. But with today's technology, you have a lot more options. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, of course, you can read it in large print or using some type of voiceover. But if those two things aren't in your budget, there is a cheaper alternative, and that is an iPod Touch, believe it or not. It's inexpensive, and it does just about everything that a tablet or smartphone can do as long as you have a Wi-Fi connection. I keep all of my recipes on the computer, so when it's time to bake, what I do is send my recipe in an email to myself so I can then read it on either a smartphone or this iPod Touch. So right now, ingredients. I'm going to show you what the ingredients are for the Hawaiian Delight Cupcakes.
3. List start. Large eggs. List 8 ounces. Sour cream. 1/3 cup buttermilk. 1/3 cup cream of coconut. 1/2 teaspoon vanilla extract. 1 box white cake mix. Crushed pineapple.
And there you have it. So now I know what I'm going to need to get started with this recipe. Next, let's talk about methods for measuring while you're baking. If you are used to baking with sight, you're going to first want to probably grab your liquid level measuring cups, but they are difficult. When you start to lose your vision, it's really hard to measure things by looking at little hash marks on a bowl. For example, this is one that has raised lines, which are great. You can feel them, but you have to have enough vision to be able to line up the raised line with what's on the inside of the bowl. And there's not a lot of contrast here at all. So this is not something that I would recommend if you're starting to lose your vision. Now, they do have lots of choices out there on the market. If you still want to use a liquid level measuring cup, this one has larger print on it in black, which is nice as long as you're measuring something contrasting like milk or something that's white. I have a rag in here right now just so you can have some contrast behind it. But there are other types of measuring cups like this that come in bright colors and large print and tactually marked. You just have to go to specialty stores to find them. So my favorite is to use regular standard dry measuring cups because they are so much easier to judge for accuracy. Now, you can go to a specialty store and get measuring cups that are color-coded, like each cup would be a different color depending on the measurement, or you can find in places like Walmart or Target or kitchen places, they will color code on the handles of the cups, such as these are. Each of the different measurements has a different color, and inside the color it has the measurement. Nowadays you can even find some large print ones if you're lucky when you're out in the general stores. There is a tactile way that you can mark these cups if you don't want to have to rely on vision at all. Let's say you have no vision. There's a product, a specialty product on the market called High Marks. High Marks is a puff paint that will stick to any surface. So what I recommend is that you mark each cup with the amount of dots that coincide with the number on the bottom of the fraction. For example, this is a 1/4 cup. So you would put 4 little bump dots on the stem of this cup. High Marks is fine. Once it dries, it's not going anywhere, so it can be washed. This next one over is the third cup, so you would put 3 dots. Half cup would put 2 dots. And on the 1 cup, you really don't have to put anything because you know the one without anything is the 1 cup. Now, you'll notice on my particular cups, I don't have any texture markers. I don't need them because I use a simple method, and that is to pare down your cups to just the measurements that you need. So I got rid of all those extra cups in there, and all I have is the 1 cup, the half cup, the third cup, and the 4th cup. Because if I have these 4 cups, I can cook anything I need to cook, right? So I know, by the way, I call this the nesting method. Once they're nested, you can always tell what their measurements are. And you can do the same thing with your spoons. So these are tricky, and you can get sets of measuring spoons that come with 8 and 10 different types of measurements, but you really don't need all of that. I have mine pared down. This came with a whole bunch of spoons that I never use, so I pare it down to just what I need. I have a half a tablespoon, a teaspoon, and a half a teaspoon. And I know you're wondering, where's the tablespoon? Well, I have small children, so that disappeared a long time ago, but I have a different tablespoon that I like to use that feels completely different. This is a spoon that can actually adjust. It starts off with 1 teaspoon, and there's a little piece here that slides up in different increments, and when it's completely open, it is a full tablespoon. So, great set. If you need anything that is a little bit bigger or a little bit smaller than any of these main measurements, it should be pretty easy for you to do the math and find the measurements that you need. Now we're ready to get started. Preheat your oven to 325. Make sure your workspace is clear and clean, and gather all of the ingredients and tools that you're going to need to do the task. Another helpful hint is to clean as you go. That'll make it a lot easier with less mess at the end. So let's talk about Workspace for a second. If you have low vision, you want to be sure and define your workspace. Here, most of my measuring tools and the bowls I'm going to use are white. So I'm defining my area with a nice black cloth so it's easy to see everything that I'm working with. I also like to work with a wet paper towel and keep it handy in case something spills or my fingers get sticky so that you can keep things clean as you go. It's also really nice if you have the luxury of working next to a kitchen sink because you have quick access to water and you can get the dirty stuff out of your way and right into the sink as soon as you can and get it out of your way. You can scoop or pour when baking. So buttermilk is one of the ingredients for this particular recipe, and the store didn't have any of the pre-made buttermilk, so I have the powdered kind that I'm going to make today. Now I went ahead and pre-measured the water that I need, and this powder requires 2 tablespoons to mix with this water to make buttermilk. So I have here my tablespoon. I'm going to scoop it, slide across. Now, whether you scoop or pour is really up to you. It depends on how much upper body strength and how steady your arms are to do the task, or how precise you like your measurements to be when you're baking. Now this one's pretty much a no-brainer. I'm just scooping. I'm using my index finger to slide across the top to make sure that it's a precise amount. There we go. And after I stir this up, I'm going to have buttermilk. So the first step is to beat 3 eggs for 2 minutes with the beater. So for the sake of time, I went ahead and did that already, if you can see it in the bowl. But when I break eggs into a bowl, because I can't see the shells, I use my fingers to feel around and make sure there are no shells in there. And then of course you just wash your hands and move on with the process. So step 2, after the eggs have been beaten, is to add in the next 4 ingredients. So I've got my buttermilk, I have my 1/3 cup ready to go, and I am going to use a pouring method. You want to line up, like we learned in an earlier video, you line up the spout to the cup, I have my finger inside the cup so I know when it gets to the top. And go ahead and pour it in. I'm going to move the buttermilk off to the side and use my next ingredient. So this is the coconut milk. We're going to do the same thing. I don't have a spout, but we're just going to pray. Whoop. There we go. Always, always, always do it right over the bowl to make sure that if it does happen to spill a little bit, it's just going right in the bowl. So my next ingredient is sour cream. Let me wipe my finger off here. Okay, sour cream, whole small 8-ounce container. Pour that in. And spoon in the sink. Throw away that. We are cleaning as we go. And then I've got vanilla. So this is half a teaspoon of vanilla. Now, when it comes to using these little bitty spoons, it's always best if you can scoop, but I'm going to pour today. Vanilla is a tough one. The beauty of vanilla is if you over pour a tiny bit, that's okay. It just makes your dish taste better. So, now I'm going to go ahead and beat this up before we add in the white cake mix. So now that everything is nice and blended, I'm going to take the cake mix out of the box because it's easier to control, and go ahead and pour everything in. Be sure when you set your mixer back that it is over your bowl so you're not dripping onto the countertop and making a mess. Okay, and now we're going to finish blending. So after you've mixed it up for a minute or two, you want to stop and test out the edges to make sure you're getting everything along the sides. I use my finger and I can tell that there's still some powdery parts on the outside. So I'm taking a spatula and going around the edges to push everything down into the mix, and I'm going to mix it for another minute. So now the batter is ready to go. I've got my muffin tin out and it's lined with the little paper and foil liners. But before we go ahead and start putting the batter in, I like to spray each little cup with coconut spray just to keep the batter from sticking as they cook. So I'm spraying with my right hand. With my left hand, I'm putting one finger on one side of the cup, my thumb on the other, just to stay oriented, and so I'll use proprioception to know where to spray. So the batter is ready to go, and I'm about to fill the muffin cups. Now this is the most challenging part of making cupcakes if you can't see what you're doing. So I'm going to explain the technique that I use to hopefully not make too much of a mess as we go along. So I have 1 tablespoon right here. It's a perfect spoon for me. I love the way it feels in my hand. I'm going to put 2 tablespoons in a muffin cup. So by scooping out the batter, be sure that you tap the spoon on the bowl to get all the drips to come off, and then you slide the bottom of the spoon on the edge of the bowl. Now, I am using proprioception here, and I'm using my left hand, my finger, to stay oriented. So what I'm doing is my left hand was positioned around the cup, so my right hand knew exactly where to bring the spoon of batter. And then I could use my pointer finger to help scrape all the batter out of the spoon. So I'm getting my 2nd tablespoon, I'm sliding it on the edge of the bowl to make sure it catches all the drips, going right to where my left hand is, using my pointer finger to scrape the batter into the cup. All right, now I'm going to put that measuring spoon down because the next step, I'm gonna flatten out the batter a little bit. The next step is to actually take a half a tablespoon of your crushed pineapple. Same thing, scoop it out, dump it right in the middle of your cupcake. Then go back to your original spoon and put another tablespoon and a half or 2 tablespoons on top of the pineapple to cover it up. Let's see. So my left hand has not moved the entire time. It has stayed around the cupcake just to make sure I know that exactly which one I'm going to. This is pretty full, so I think that's all I needed, was to just cover up the pineapple with 1 tablespoon. And I'm going to move on to the next one now. So I moved my left hand down towards me, and I have my middle finger on one side of the cupcake, the little paper liner, and my thumb on the other side of the liner. Again, I'm using my pointer finger to help push the batter into the hole, into the liner. Get my second one going here. Okay. So now that I have 2 tablespoons, I'm going to, oops, little drip, that's okay. I'm going to get my half a tablespoon of pineapple, put that right in the middle, as close to the middle as I can. Get 1 more tablespoon of batter. You're not always going to catch all the drips, but that's okay as long as you can catch most of them. Cover up the pineapple. There we go. So your pointer finger on your left hand is to help guide the batter and to kind of gauge how much more batter to put into the cup. As you go along, if you happen to get drips on the metal, it's okay because you've got your paper towel handy. I'm using my finger to feel around. I don't feel any drips on the metal, but you have your paper towel handy to reach out there and clean up any messes that you find as you go along. So the cupcakes are ready to go. I am just running a finger through the entire grid around all the cups just to make sure that we don't have any drips here. Okay, and actually feels pretty good. I found one little one over here, one tiny one back here. All right, they are ready to go. So I am going to pop these in the oven using the techniques that I mentioned in the video last week on how to use the oven safely. These call for 24 to 27 minutes. I live at sea level. I'm going to leave them in for about 25 minutes and then check them, and we'll see how they come out. Now that the cupcakes are in the oven, we have plenty of time to do the frosting. We will need 1½ cups of heavy cream, 1 cup of sugar in a container that we can either scoop or pour, 1 8-ounce block of cream cheese. We're going to have 2 tablespoons of vanilla, a pinch of salt, and some shredded coconut. Okay, but to get started, heavy cream. Can you use whipping cream instead, like Cool Whip? Of course you can. Probably tastes okay, but there's nothing like the real stuff. So in order to use real whipped cream, we have to start by whipping it up ourselves. So, the recipe calls for 1½ cups of the cream. So we are going to, I have here a ½ cup measuring cup, and I'm going to just fill it 3 times. So I only have to use the 1 measuring cup. That's always easier than dirtying up more cups. So that's ½ cup. That's 1 cup. Be sure that you're lining up the spout with your cup and that you are over the bowl when you pour. All right, there we go. So we have 1½ cups. Put that in the sink. Put the cream off to the side. Now, when you're whipping up cream, Usually it's a little bit of a visual task, but you can feel it change as you go. The longer you whip it, the thicker it's going to get, and you'll be able to feel that through your hand mixer. Now, for people who can see or have enough vision to see, you want to, you know it's ready when you have stiff peaks form. For those of us who cannot see that, what that means is when you spoon it up, it'll be able to keep its shape and you'll know it's ready. Just be careful not to over whip it because it'll turn into butter. I've learned that the hard way. So here we go. Let's see how we do it. We're going to do 5 minutes. Hey Siri, set timer for 5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes and counting.
Okay, so my timer went off, and with the Apple Watch, when your alarm goes off, it vibrates. So that's wonderful when you're using a mixer. But I could tell that it was getting really, really thick. And for those of you who can see, it's pretty thick. So I'm going to, usually if you sneak a little finger in there, you can tell it's the consistency you want, but we're going to use a little spoon trick. See, when I spoon up some cream, it is sticking to that spoon and it's keeping its shape. So we know we are in good shape and ready to go with the cream. All right, so what we're going to do now is we are going to put the cream on the side and we're going to mix up the rest of the ingredients, and I'm going to wash my hands. Okay, so I put the cream off to the side, rinsed off the mixer, and we are going to mix up the rest of the frosting. We're going to start off with putting in the cream cheese. Now you want it to sit out so it gets about room temp and makes it soft and easy to beat up with your mixer. Then the next thing we're going to add in is 1 cup of granulated sugar. So I keep my sugar, believe it or not, in a tall, skinny spaghetti container from Tupperware. Why, you may ask? It's because it's the perfect, it just makes it really easy to pour. It's easy to grab, easy to pour, and when I'm using sugar, I'm usually measuring it out, and I prefer to pour instead of dip. So I'm holding the 1 cup in my left hand, and I'm pouring with my right. I lined them up over the bowl, and the sugar easily pours right on out. And I'm using my pointer finger in my left hand to kind of make sure all the lumps are flat. So I have an actual full cup of sugar. Put a little extra for good measure. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to put the sugar off to the side, put that measuring cup off to the side. Next, it calls for 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Okay, now for this, I'm actually holding the little spoon in my right hand, and I'm going to pour with my left. And I have my right index finger right over the lip of the little teaspoon so I can feel when it fills up. So that's 1. I'm putting a second one. And again, if you over pour just a tiny bit with vanilla, who cares? Just makes it taste better, right? All right. It's hard to be absolutely precise, but sometimes in baking, you just gotta go with your feeling. You know what's right. All right, the next thing is salt. It takes a pinch of salt. So I'm pouring a little bit of salt in my hand, pinching it up with my other hand just to make sure I've got the right amount. And that actually was a perfect little amount for a pinch. Okay, so what am I missing? I had the salt, the vanilla, I had the cream cheese, the sugar, and we're good to go. I'm going to mix it up. After we mix this up, then we're going to fold in the whipped cream and the coconut. So here we go. Okay, so this is mixed up, ready to go. What we're going to do now is fold in our cream. So I'm going to line up the bowls, make sure the lips of them are lined up. And remember, it's truly folding. You're not mixing. I'm just going to scrape everything into this bowl. And then I'm going to gently put that aside in the sink. I'm going to gently fold everything together. Now, at this point, you can put in coconut as well, since you're folding things together. You put the coconut to taste. If you like a little coconut, just put a little. If you like a lot, put a lot. I'm going to put about a cup of shredded coconut because I love coconut, and these are Hawaiian cupcakes. So, I'm trying to get the, okay. I open the bag. I'm going to pour it over my 1 cup mix here. And if some spills in, no big deal, because we're doing this, it's just a preference. It's not precise. Okay, so about a cup of coconut, put that off to the side. And here we go. Next step, frost the cupcakes and we'll be done. Okay, I just took them out of the oven. They smell wonderful. Okay, if you can see, they should be lightly browned on top. Now, if you cannot see, this is how I check to make sure that they're done. With a very flat hand, I touch the top of the muffin. I'm using proprioception to tell where to touch. And if it feels spongy, they should be pretty good. If they're not cooked, they're gonna feel squishy. The reason you want to keep your hands very straight is because you don't want to accidentally touch the metal with your fingertip. Now I have here a toothpick, and I'm going to stick the toothpick down into one. As long as it comes out clean and dry, well, mostly dry, it should be done. The pineapple in there is wet, so it might come out just a little bit sticky from the pineapple, but as long as there's not a whole lot of batter or residue sticking to the toothpick, it should be good to go. And I think these are done. Okay, so the cupcakes are out of the oven. You want them to cool for about 45 minutes, which gives you plenty of time to have made the frosting. So now I'm going to show you how to frost a cupcake if you're visually impaired. If you have low vision, you want to be sure to have good task lighting pointing down on your workspace, and contrast, of course, is always going to help you with this. We've got some white frosting, so having a dark background will help you. Now, I cannot see the frosting. I'm going to show you how I do it. I take a little spoon that's about the right size for 1 cupcake. Take a heaping spoonful, plop it on there. But when I am decorating, the best way for me to know what's going on is to actually use my finger. That's why I know it's a lot of frosting, but you know what? Cupcakes are so much prettier when they have a whole big heaping blob of frosting. So I use my fingers to do the detail work. That is why I keep a wet paper towel close by so I can wipe my fingers, because one thing you do not want to do is lick your fingers when you're frosting cupcakes. Nobody wants that. All right, there we go. So now we have a truly delicious Hawaiian Delight cupcake. So voila! They're done. And now you have insight into how this works. So you can enjoy baking again. All it takes is a few simple techniques and the right tools. And you've got it. So remember, simplify your measuring cups and your measuring spoons. Use timing, texture, and proprioception as an adaptation. Use containers that allow you to easily pour or dip when you're measuring. If you have low vision, be sure you have the right task lighting and the use of contrast to help define your space. And of course, clean as you go, so the mess isn't so bad when you're done. Oh, and of course, don't forget to turn the oven off. Check out my video from last week if you want reminders on how to use the oven safely. Hope you enjoy your Hawaiian Delight cupcakes. I know I will. Thanks for joining me today. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up on the bottom of your screen. Subscribe and set your notifications so you'll know each week when I post new videos. If you have any comments, questions, or ideas for future videos, reach out. I'd love to hear from you. My job is to show you the tips, tools, and techniques so that you can do what you need and want to do. So no worries, you got this. Thanks for watching. See you later.